What's happening? Happy Friday to all of you. Thanks for joining me. As always, it is very much appreciated. Lots of news pouring in on this Friday. We've got to talk about some staff additions. Want to talk about Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel, how that dynamic is going to work between those two personalities. And we have some breaking news that just broke about 45 minutes ago. But before I get to all of that, I want to thank Terry, who sent a $50 super chat. Going to miss the show live today because of physical therapy. Again, hopefully you're doing well, Terry, with the physical therapy. The knee replacement you had several weeks ago, hopefully all is going well. Enjoy the football weekend, everyone. Everyone says thank you, Terry. I say thank you for your generosity and your support. That $50 super chat. Thank you to Terry Grant. All right, let's start with the breaking news. Jabril Peppers, as we know, got into some trouble off the field last year. The NFL told him to sit and wait a while. He ended up coming back towards the end of the season. He was active. He played for the Patriots, but he still had to go to court. He still had to go to trial because of the domestic violence and assault charges. So just about 45 minutes ago, Peppers was acquitted on all charges in the domestic violence case. So he was acquitted on all charges. This was a jury of 6 people, 5 women, 1 man. It took about an hour. It took about an hour for the jury to deliberate and come back with not guilty on all charges. So Peppers, as far as the domestic violence and battery case, he is cleared. He is cleared and free to go. He was acquitted on every single charge from that 6-person jury. I'm not too surprised by this. The Patriots let him back into the facility. The Patriots made him active. The Patriots allowed him to practice and play. And I said it back then, I'll say it now. I would find it very hard to believe that the Patriots allowed Peppers to play a football game if they weren't damn near confident at 100% that he was going to be found acquitted on all of these charges. They had to know the evidence. They had to know the situation. I'm sure they had plenty of conversations with Peppers and his representation. And because the Patriots allowed him back into the building and played him, allowed him to be active, I figured this was going to be the end of this story. So Peppers acquitted on all charges. Of course, Peppers did admit to cocaine possession. I don't think that's going to keep him from playing. I don't think a cocaine possession is going to kick him out of the league. I don't know how Mike Vrabel will feel about this. We know there have been Patriots in prior years under Bill Belichick that had some questions about recreational drug use, recreational, possession of drugs, all that kind of stuff. And those guys stayed here. So I don't know how Vrabel is going to handle this, but I do think the cocaine possession, while serious, I don't think that would get in the way. That's my gut. That's my guess that Mike Vrabel would not cut Peppers off of the cocaine possession. The bigger issue was the domestic violence and assault charges. And we should know that because I'm sure Jabril Peppers told Robert Kraft and company when he sat down and had those conversations before he was allowed back onto the field. I'm sure the cocaine possession also was a part of that conversation. And obviously the Patriots as an organization, as a franchise, felt comfortable playing Peppers, allowing him out there, representing the team on the field, off the field, in the locker room, with the media. So I don't think the cocaine possession is going to keep him from playing football. Jabril Peppers, to me, is a Mike Vrabel type player. A Mike Vrabel guy, right? His style of play, very physical. He's accountable. He's somebody that will stand up in front of the cameras. He'll talk into the microphones. He will say, I was awful today. He takes accountability, just his overall tone, his leadership tone. It feels like he would be perfect for Mike Vrabel. That physicality, that accountability, the voice in the locker room. I don't know if he's going to stay. I don't know if he's going to go. Again, cocaine possession is no joke. Vrabel might say we don't want any issue as we try to reset this culture again, but I don't think that immediately rules him out. And I think Vrabel would like a lot of things, a lot of aspects to Peppers' game and his attitude, his personality, and how he approaches the game. So we'll see how that comes together. All right, let's talk about the staff. Lots of staffing news over the past couple of days. An exciting time, right? For the Patriots, they're starting to fill their staffs up. We know the coordinators, Terrell Williams, DC, McDaniels, OC, Springer, special teams, Vrabel's your head coach. But we start to see how these staffs are going to fill out. Mark Daniels reported today at Mass Live. TC McCartney is gone. He's gone. So I wouldn't say I'm surprised because, as I mentioned in prior podcasts, usually when you bring in a new head coach, you bring in a new offensive coordinator, usually that means the decks are wiped clean, right? Everybody on the prior staff is usually out. And if not out, then, maybe a couple of people stay. So I'm not shocked that TC McCartney is gone. He was younger. He had a good reputation when he came in here last year. I thought that there might be a possibility that they would hang on to him. But TC McCartney is moving on, and it certainly looks like Josh McDaniels, Mike Vrabel, they are wiping the decks clean on offense. They're getting rid of everybody from last year's staff. They're starting over. Now with McDaniels, he has lots of offensive coordinator / QB's coach on his resume. He has multiple times in the past done both of those jobs. And I think some of us thought that there was the possibility, if not probability, that McDaniels would do both of those jobs here in New England for the upcoming season. It would be easy to figure that McDaniels would be OC and quarterbacks coach, helping the development of Drake Maye, just holding his hand throughout the early portion of the season and getting him ready to gain more responsibility. But that's not going to be the case. Josh McDaniels is not going to be your OC and quarterbacks coach for 2025 because the Patriots hired Ashton Grant as their quarterbacks coach. Now, Grant is from Connecticut. He was a quality control assistant at Holy Cross. For the last 5 years, he was with the Cleveland Browns. The last 2 seasons in Cleveland, he was an offensive assistant and worked with the quarterbacks. So he is somebody that has quarterback experience. He played the position in college, and he also was somebody who had worked with the quarterbacks in Cleveland the last couple of years as an offensive assistant. So that's one new hire to the offensive staff. The second hire to me is even more interesting than Ashton Grant. Today we found out this morning that the Patriots also hired Ohio State offensive assistant Riley Larkin to be an offensive assistant with the Patriots in 2025. So a few points on that in just a couple of minutes, but I want to remind you, before I dig deep into these new hires for this offensive staff under Vrabel and McDaniels, I want you to remember you can help us out. You can do a couple of easy things for us. Doesn't cost you any money. You don't have to spend a ton of time. You could just travel your mouse on down to that thumbs up, click the like button. More likes helps us with the algorithm. So don't forget to click that like button as you watch and listen. You can also throw a comment in. How do you feel about the staff so far? TC McCartney gone. Do you want to weigh in on Jabril Peppers? You can do that as well. So every like and every comment helps us with that algorithm, helps us build this community. And speaking of the community, we are over 5,600 subscribers at this point. The next goal is 6,000 subscribers. So if you like what we do, don't forget to subscribe, click that notify bell. Again, all of this helps us if we want to continue to march forward with the Nick Cattle Show, this podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Talking Patriots. That's how we do it. We like, we comment, and we subscribe. Spotify, Apple Pods, friends. Don't forget to rate, review, and also leave a comment if you would like. Let's jump to a super chat before I tell you how I feel about these new offensive staff hirings. Vitalik's $10 super chat. Thank you for the 10. I honestly hate this narrative that the Crafts are being cheap with the Josh hire, as if completely swapping out a staff you just gave contracts to doesn't cost money. I think this is, part of the sports media ether kind of floating throughout Boston and New England. The idea that Robert Kraft is just trying to get deals with offensive coordinators and this and that. Look, Alex Van Pelt was paid, according to Phil Perry this week, he was paid just a shade under $3 million to be the OC last year. That's a lot of money. And we've also heard prior reports that Robert Kraft, the Patriots, offered Nick Caley $3 million last year to be the OC. They're going to pay Josh McDaniels. McDaniels is certainly going to get paid the money that he's owed from the Raiders, but there's a little bit of offset language, the contract, all of that stuff. Look, I think Vitalik's is right with his bigger point or her bigger point, and that idea is you're not only paying this staff, you're also paying a number of people from last year's staff. This is part of the argument that I had when people try to tell me, oh, the Crafts have to put more money towards the coaching staff to help Jerod Mayo. Robert Kraft had to pay Bill Belichick. He still had 1 year left on his deal. Belichick was getting paid about $25 million a year, according to reports. So if Robert Kraft had to pay Belichick $25 million last year to not even coach his team, he also had to pay Jerod Mayo. What's Jerod Mayo making? $7 million, $8 million a year, maybe as much as $10 million a year? I don't know. But let's say that's $8 million. That means that Robert Kraft, for the head coaching position in 2024, paid $33 million. Vrabel's going to make reportedly around $15 million from what we know, right? 15, 16 million. This past season, Robert Kraft, for the head coaching position, paid $33 million out to Mayo and Belichick. So if it was just a money thing, Kraft would have kept Belichick for 2024 because he would have just paid out the final year of his contract. Appreciate you, Vitalik's. Ryan jumps in with a $10 super chat. Hey, Nick, love your show. Don't know if you are aware, but Vrabel sat down with Steve Burton. Yes, I just saw that. Some quotes popping up online. You should check them out. I saw Mike Reese mention that this interview was going to be shown on Sunday morning, and it's going to be at 11:30 a.m. on WBZ TV. It's between Vrabel and Steve Burton, so that's going to be interesting. I will certainly keep an eye out for quotes and what he says. I will certainly watch it on Sunday morning. It'll be interesting to see what Vrabel has to say about McDaniels and Terrell Williams and, why he brought guys in. So I appreciate that, Ryan. And Ryan, I think you sent a double super chat. I don't know if I could pay you back for the second 10, but I appreciate you, my man. Hope you have a great weekend. All right, so let's get into my thoughts about the two new hires to this offensive staff. Number one, here's what I really like about this staff. It's not Mike Vrabel dictating who's going to be on the offensive staff. It doesn't look that way. And last night, when the news came out, of course, we had Tony Dews, running backs coach for the Jets. We don't know what he's going to do here in New England. He's a Vrabel guy. He's coming in. And then last night, we saw the news about Ashton Grant. Ashton Grant was with Mike Vrabel in Cleveland. Initially, when I saw that, my concern was, this is going to be a Mike Vrabel offensive staff, isn't it? Like, he's going to bring in all of his guys. I didn't want that. I want Josh McDaniels to have some kind of autonomy on this offensive staff. I want him to have some of his guys on this staff. Well, now I feel a little bit better about things for a couple of reasons. First, again, we see that Riley Larkin from Ohio State has been brought in. Riley Larkin is a McDaniels guy. So what you see now is you kind of see the melding of Vrabel guys and McDaniels guys. So Tony Dews and Grant from Cleveland, those two guys come in. Those are Vrabel guys. Larkin comes in from not only Ohio State, but he also played quarterback at John Carroll, which is where McDaniels is from, right? That college, which is where many other people are from. Nick Caserio, Jerry Shablitsky, some other guys as well. So it looks like you're going to have some people from Vrabel's background, some people from McDaniels' background. I like that much better than Vrabel just forcing a staff onto McDaniels. Something else that I liked, and this hit me about 10 minutes after I sent the tweet. You can follow me at Nick C Radio on Twitter. I sent the tweet out saying, this is giving me a little bit of Bill Belichick, Bill O'Brien vibes if Vrabel's just going to bring all of his guys in and force them onto McDaniels. But then I had the evolving opinion. I was thinking about it more. And after thinking about it for 10 minutes, I said, wait a minute. I followed that initial tweet up with the follow-up tweet because if you think about it, I think this shows us that Josh McDaniels is focused on evolving his offense, which we've talked about. During his year off, he went to Ohio State. He went to USC. He went to some other programs across the country, some NFL teams. And reportedly, McDaniels talked to different people around the game, studied different offenses because he wanted to evolve his offense. He didn't want to do the same old that he had done for so long. He wanted to catch up. Some people would say modernize, right? So McDaniels, the fact that they bring Grant from Cleveland and he has a background with the West Coast system because he coached under Stefanski. He also coached under Alex Van Pelt in 2023. So now you start to put the pieces together. McDaniels doesn't have necessarily a bunch of guys in his background that know the West Coast system, that understand, through and through what you want to do with that scheme. So if McDaniels is going to evolve his offense like it looks like he's going to, he's going to need some Vrabel guys to be part of his staff because Vrabel does have a background in the West Coast. They ran a lot of that in Tennessee. Matt LaFleur, right? Matt LaFleur, who was like a Shanahan guy, went to Tennessee, first OC for Vrabel, then went to Green Bay. West Coast guy. Arthur Smith has a lot of West Coast vibes to his offense. So it makes sense if McDaniels is going to evolve the offense, and it might be more similar to what we saw last year as far as simplifying things, running the West Coast. If there's going to be some of that, if not a lot of that, in this 2025 Patriots offense, then you have to pluck guys from other places and put them on this staff so McDaniels has people underneath him that know how to work within that system. So you take Grant from Cleveland, very similar, right, to what we saw last year with Alex Van Pelt. You bring him over because that transition will be easier. You look at Larkin. Riley Larkin comes over, and Riley Larkin brings in the Chip Kelly / Ryan Day Ohio State offense. And if you saw Ohio State play this year, they run some read option stuff with their quarterbacks. They have some different concepts. So McDaniels, to me, looking at these hires so far, it would indicate, and I might end up being wrong, but it would indicate to me that McDaniels is looking to evolve his offense, looking to change things. And he's looking at the West Coast offense, and he's looking at some of the stuff that they did at Ohio State and probably some other college programs. And to me, that's promising. It's promising because McDaniels is telling us that he's open to changing things. And what we thought might be his offense, from 7 years ago, 4 years ago, it's probably not going to be his offense in 2025. Again, I could be totally wrong, but that's how I read some of these hires so far. Secondly, at least thirdly, melding Vrabel guys and McDaniels guys. Second point, McDaniels is focused on evolving the offense. The third point, and this is critical, not only is McDaniels focused on evolving his offense, but it's obvious that McDaniels and Vrabel are very focused on developing Drake Maye, making him the best quarterback that he can be. Grant was in Cleveland. Grant worked under Van Pelt. Bringing Grant over makes it easier for Drake Maye to communicate, right? You have McDaniels, who has developed quarterbacks throughout his career. Now you have Grant, who worked in the same offense that Van Pelt worked in for the most part, right? The same principles, a lot of the same language, I'm sure. Now you have Grant as your quarterbacks coach. So McDaniels has the history, the resume of developing and working with quarterbacks. Now you bring a quarterbacks coach over who just worked in the same system for the most part that Van Pelt worked in before he came here and helped develop and communicate with Drake Maye during his rookie season. It's an easier transition. It makes it much more palatable for Drake Maye to absorb information by bringing in Grant. Then you look at the fact that Larkin, who's going to be the offensive assistant, he was also a quarterback in college. He was intricately involved in the quarterback room in Ohio State. Will Howard came out, and Will Howard gave Larkin credit for his development along with some other coaches, but he gave Riley Larkin some love after the national championship game for helping his game develop. So when you think about this in totality, what we have is Josh McDaniels, a very experienced quarterback developer, leading the program. Underneath him, you have Ashton Grant, who played quarterback, worked with quarterbacks in Cleveland, very similar, and even back in 23, the same stuff that AVP talks about and runs. You have him now as part of this staff. And then you bring in Riley Larkin from the college game, who is also a former quarterback, who worked with the quarterback last year at Ohio State. And now he comes in, and he also can help with Drake Maye's development. It makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense when you put the pieces together as to what they are trying to accomplish. Patriot staff is also getting younger, which excites me, right? Because usually when you talk about young football coaches, you talk about creativity, you talk about innovation. Grant is 28 years old. Larkin is about 28 years old. So you've got two guys who are young, played the quarterback position, pretty well thought of so far within the game, one from the pro level, one from the college level, both under 30 years old, ready to walk into this offense and help infuse this offense with a little bit of refreshing clarity for Josh McDaniels. So it makes so much sense the way that you layer it, the way that you look at it. You've got the steady hand in Josh McDaniels. He's been doing this for a long time. He's good at what he does. Now you've got two young assistants underneath McDaniels who played quarterback, have worked with quarterbacks, and have experience with different systems that utilize quarterbacks' running ability and to utilize the West Coast offense to keep things a little bit more simple. So you combine all of this, and it makes a lot of sense. Let's jump to a super chat. I've got more thoughts. Casey Reed with a $20 super chat, feeling so much better about the coaching staff. But who's the OL and WR coaches? So important. Yes. Those are the two big ones that we're looking at, right? Wide receivers coach, offensive line coach. What's interesting is today, Bobby Slowick in Houston, who was everybody's second favorite offensive coordinator last year, he got fired by Houston today. So not only did Bobby Slowick get fired, but so did their two offensive line coaches. The assistant line coach in Houston is Cole Popovich. Cole Popovich has a history with Josh McDaniels. I don't know if that's going to end up being the guy for the offensive line. But I do think it's interesting that Popovich is gone, fired from Houston. He is now fully available, has a relationship with McDaniels, and has been an offensive line coach for a number of years now. So Cole Popovich is a name to keep an eye on. I don't know if he's going to be the guy, but someone to keep an eye on. As far as wide receivers coaches, Casey, we've talked about a couple guys, and I'll keep pounding the table. Brian Hartline at Ohio State obviously has connections with Mike Vrabel because he is at Ohio State, played for Ohio State. So he's got that Vrabel connection. Hartline's done a tremendous job with Ohio State wide receivers, just a tremendous job of developing these young guys. Jeremiah Smith is just the latest. He's a freak talent. You saw him pretty much seal the national championship on Monday night against Notre Dame. So Brian Hartline has a distinguished career at the college level of developing wide receivers and elevating their game. He's somebody that I would love. I don't know if he wants to leave Ohio State. I don't know. The other guy is Wes Welker. And I know people will go, oh, here we go, former Patriots. Wes Welker makes sense. Wes Welker makes lots of sense because he cooked in McDaniels' offense. So if you want a guy who can walk onto the field and help teach you that McDaniels offense, or at least some of the old offense that McDaniels, I'm sure, is going to keep. He's not going to scrap everything. Welker has a background in that. Welker also coached under Kyle Shanahan, and he coached under Mike McDaniel. So he also has intimate knowledge of that West Coast system, which goes hand in hand with the Cleveland offense, which, again, you just brought in Grant to be your quarterback's coach. So Welker, he is a perfect melding, to use that word again, of Josh McDaniels' Patriots offense because Again, he cooked in that offense. He has extensive knowledge with that offense, but he also has extensive knowledge coaching for the last 5 years under Shanahan and McDaniel of the West Coast offense. So if you're marrying those two concepts together, if you're marrying those two offenses together, Wes Welker is the perfect meeting ground. And he's been a wide receivers coach for 5 years in the NFL. So those are the two names that I'm looking at. Chad O'Shea is another name that people have brought up. I don't know if O'Shea is going to leave Cleveland. I don't know how that's going to look, but those are a couple of names. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Those three things mean an awful lot to me, mean an awful lot to all of us. Like, comment, and subscribe. The goal is 6,000 subscribers. You help us get there. I appreciate every single one of you. All right, some more thoughts. McDaniels and Vrabel are not just bringing guys in exclusively from their last stops, which I like. Right? Like, Vrabel is not going to bring his entire Tennessee, I don't think, the entire Tennessee staff up with him offensively. He goes and gets Grant. Obviously, Vrabel was with Cleveland last year and saw something about Ashton Grant that he really liked. And Ashton Grant was also interviewed by Matt LaFleur for the Green Bay quarterbacks coach job. So again, you see the Matt LaFleur ties, right? The Matt LaFleur ties with the Kyle Shanahan ties, with the Stefanski ties, the West Coast offense. So, Vrabel didn't just go to his old go-tos so far. This might change. There's a lot more, coaches to be hired, but McDaniels goes to Ohio State to grab Larkin. You've got Vrabel going to Cleveland to get Grant. So it seems like they are looking around to pluck some of the best young talent that they could find. And I love the mix of having Vrabel and McDaniels and Terrell Williams, veteran guys who have been there for a long time, leading, right? And underneath them, you sprinkle in some of the younger cats that can bring different ideas in and a different energy. I like that mix. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything is going to be sunshine and roses. I don't know. I said this last offseason, right? I can only tell you if something makes sense. And so far, what's happening here makes a lot of sense to me. Vrabel and McDaniels, what they're doing, it makes sense. It's interesting. It's intriguing because when you bring in young people, you don't know how it's going to go. But obviously, McDaniels feels a lot for Larkin and thinks that he can do some things and develop to be somebody who could be pretty special. And it seems like Vrabel feels the same way about Ashton Grant. Still waiting on the offensive line coach, still waiting on the wide receivers coach, as we just talked about with Casey. The defensive staff, they've also added some names. So the defensive staff added Tennessee assistant defensive line coach and pass rush specialist Clinton McMillan. We talked about a week or so ago that Joe Kim, who was the pass rush specialist for the Patriots under Belichick the last several years, Joe Kim moving on. So it certainly would seem that Clinton McMillan will replace Joe Kim as the pass rush specialist and assistant defensive line coach. And when you look at Tennessee's defense, when Mike Vrabel was there, they got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. They like getting pressure on the quarterback. They like playing four guys down on the defensive line. So McMillan comes in. He will coach underneath Terrell Williams. Of course, Terrell Williams is a former defensive line coach. So I would imagine Terrell Williams will be the DC. I would think that McMillan would likely be the defensive line coach and also work with the pass rushers as part of that job. That's what would make sense to me. Patriots also hired Zach Kerr. He was a Giants defensive assistant last year. He was the assistant inside linebackers coach in Tennessee with Vrabel. So, of course, I would imagine that means Dante Hightower will end up being out because Hightower worked with the inside linebackers this past year, and we know that Hightower is a Gerard Mayo guy. So it certainly seems like Hightower will be out, and I would think that Zach Kerr, who was the assistant inside linebackers coach in Tennessee, will be the inside linebackers coach here in New England. I would like to see the Patriots keep Mike Pellegrino, secondaries coach. I think he's a damn good coach. I don't know if he wants to go to North Carolina. I don't know if he's looking for a bump in pay here. Maybe he wants a special title like defensive pass game coordinator. But I would do if I was Mike Vrabel, I would do everything I could to keep Mike Pellegrino because I think he's done a tremendous job with defensive backs. I'm a big fan of Mike Pellegrino. And I would hope the Patriots find a way to keep him on this staff. Brian Belichick, I would also entertain keeping on this staff as the safeties coach. Of course, Brian could end up with his dad down in North Carolina and along with his brother, but those are a couple of names that I would like to see the Patriots keep on that defensive staff. Pellegrino, Brian Belichick. We'll see if that's what they do. All right. Before I say goodbye to all of you for the weekend, I wanted to talk about Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel and the personality of each guy and whether or not that could create a conflict. The top of the staff is figured out, right? Springer, McDaniels, Vrabel, Williams, top of the staff. Now, Springer, McDaniels, and Vrabel, they've never worked together. And it's just like anything else in life. If you've never worked with somebody before, you don't know if it's going to work out for you, right? Different personalities, different thoughts, different approaches. I've worked with different co-hosts in radio. Sometimes it's very easy, and the chemistry is immediate, and we feed off of each other. Sometimes you work with the co-host, it takes a little while to figure it out. Sometimes you work with the co-host, you never truly figure it out. So Springer, McDaniels, and Vrabel, they all look great on paper, but they inevitably have to work together. They've got to be a partnership. And Burt Breer was on Zoe and Beadle this week, and he brought up that McDaniels and Vrabel are both alphas, and they have very strong feelings on football. And Burt said that he spoke to some people that are interested to see if Vrabel and McDaniels can work together because, again, they're kind of two bulls. Two bulls. And when you have an alpha with another alpha, sometimes that doesn't mix well. So Burt was talking about this relationship, coaching together, and whether or not it will work out. It's a legitimate question for any new partnership. Again, anything that you do for a career, if you're working with somebody that you never worked with before, it might not work out. And we have to acknowledge that. We have to acknowledge that McDaniels and Vrabel, even though that they know each other, they're friends, Vrabel was on the football team when McDaniels was coaching. They've never held these roles together at the top of an organization. So, yes, the question should be asked, is this partnership going to work? To me, it's all about the latitude that Vrabel gives to McDaniels. This isn't about McDaniels to Vrabel. McDaniels is not the guy, right? Vrabel's the guy. How much latitude does Vrabel give to McDaniels? How much say does he give to him? Is McDaniels going to be, left to his own devices on the offensive side? Belichick did that, especially late in his career. He let McDaniels do whatever he wanted to do on the offense. So how much will Vrabel give to McDaniels? If Vrabel lets McDaniels run his program and every once in a while jumps in with a thought, a comment, I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. If Vrabel wants to micromanage and McDaniels is like, I know what the hell I'm doing, that's when you might have an issue. I don't think there's going to be an issue. I don't think there's going to be an issue because I do think that Mike Vrabel is smart enough and he understands McDaniels, we're bringing him in to run this offense. That's going to be his job. I don't think Vrabel's going to get in the way. I think Vrabel gets in the way if things aren't going right. I think Vrabel will weigh in short yardage situations, red zone situations, when you're around the 50-yard line. If you're looking at, for example, it's 3rd and 3, and you're at the 48-yard line of the opposition. I think Vrabel will pop in and say, Josh, we're going to go for it on 4th down if we don't make it here, so understand that as a play caller. That's the type of thing that Vrabel's going to do. I don't think Vrabel's going to be popping out of the headset during the game and going on like a 2nd and 7, hey, Josh, how about we run this play-action bootleg down the seam? I don't think that's going to happen. So as long as Vrabel gives McDaniels his playpen and gives him the latitude, I don't think it'll be that big of a deal. But I do think it's a fair question to ask when you've got two alphas in powerful positions. And really filling out this staff is the first challenge. So how much more will we see, right? Again, as I said a little while ago, it seems like you've got some of Vrabel, some of McDaniels. They're mixing it, and they're putting it together on this offensive staff. If over the next week or so, we find out that like 97% of the staff are Vrabel guys on the offensive side, then we might have to look at it and go, wait a minute, is this Vrabel kind of putting his foot down already? So the first challenge of the two alphas to work together is staffing the offense, the coaching staff, right? And if they can do that together, then I think that tells us that it's not going to be Vrabel's way or the highway, that Vrabel is willing to say, no, this is your side of the football, Josh. You have plenty of say as to who you want to work with. Find the middle ground. If they can find the middle ground, it's all good. And I hope that both see the big picture. I hope that, both Vrabel and McDaniels see the big picture, which is number one, developing Drake Maye. That's a top priority, right? Don't let your ego, don't let your stubbornness, don't let your selfishness get in the way of developing Drake Maye. Do what's best for the quarterback. If what's best for the quarterback is letting Josh McDaniels run with that offense and take the keys, then Mike Vrabel, I think, is going to allow Josh McDaniels to run with that offense and take the keys. Because Mike Vrabel understands that if Drake Maye gets better, Drake Maye is going to win more football games. And if you win more football games, guess what? You're going to be just fine as the head coach. So I think Vrabel gets that. And I think McDaniels understands that. And just respectability, right? The big picture, respectability between each other. But I don't think it'll be a bananas type situation. It's a fair question to ask. It'll be interesting to see how each guy handles the other. But I think they've already had conversations. I'm pretty confident. And I think Vrabel understands that Josh McDaniels is here in New England to run the offense. Again, that's his playpen. All right, speaking of playpen, I'm going to go enjoy my playpen on a Friday night. Kelly and I are going to go out, have some drinks. Don't know where we're going just yet. I hope all of you have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the football. If something big breaks, I'll be here to break it. Tomorrow, I'll be on 98.5 The Sports Hub between like 4 and 5 o'clock. Power Hour edition between the Bruins and the Celtics games. So you can check me out at 98.5 tomorrow, 4 to 5 p.m. But back here on Monday, 3 p.m. live with all the news from over the weekend. Should be a lot going on. It's a busy, busy time, and it's an exciting time for what's happening with this Patriots staff. I'm enjoying what they're doing so far. Talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend. This has been the Nick Cattle Show.